What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for That review. I'm Chris.
And I'm Nick.
And, guys, if you're just joining us for the first time, we would love it if you hit the subscribe button below. It is free, and we got movies reviews like this coming out every week. Today's movie is The Kid Detective. So, this came out in 2020. The worst year for releasing a movie, and probably the worst time to do so because it was like the beginning of the big wave of COVID where everybody was freaking out fully in October. So nobody saw this in theaters. I don't even know how it was possible to see this in theaters, but we just watched it. It's I think pretty much the directorial debut of this guy Evan Morgan, and it stars Adam Brody and Sophie Nellis. And yeah, I thought this movie was excellent. What are your thoughts on this thing?
Yeah, I did too. Uh, it was kind of like silly Hardy Boys meets like an old gumshoe detective type movie mashed together, and there's funny little things about it like dark comedy. But yeah, it ended up being a lot better than I expected it to be.
And I think it resists being tacked down into a particular category too, because when you
Hmm.
start to feel like, okay, I got it, they're kind of trying to do like a play on like kind of more of an old school like gumshoe type story or like a neo noir kind of thing, but it's like tongue in cheek and kind of knowing of itself and whatever.
Yeah,
But uh, but it's not that all the way through.
no,
So I don't know. It's got a really wry sense of humor for sure, and yeah, it just took me by surprise, especially when things, we're not going to spoil anything here, but it gets very twisty. And I could see somebody maybe guessing where this was going to go, but I didn't even know how much guesswork was going to be involved in this movie because I didn't know
right.
how serious of a detective story we're talking about here. But
And I
uh,
did try to kind of guess where it was going simply on the fact because the story is basically Adam Brody was a kid detective who solved a bunch of little mysteries in his town until his
kind of local
assistant,
celebrity,
yeah, local celebrity, until like his assistant goes missing and is never found, and that kind of like ruins him and like messes him up. But he kind of says the thing where he's watching movies. He's like, I was always the kid who guessed who the killer was in the movie and stuff, and it shows. So like, I think it kind of
right?
leads you into doing that yourself through this movie of trying to figure
Yes,
out who done it. And I
yeah,
like,
and
I
it
didn't figure it out by the end.
no, I did not, and again, I mean, I wasn't sure how much of that I was really supposed to be doing all the way through. I was kind of just taking it in as it came to me,
Mm,
uh, but it almost led me down some wrong paths that I thought the movie was like. I don't know about
yeah.
you, but like there was one part where he's ruining movies for his parents, and
Yeah.
there's like this old black and white movie, and I wish I knew what the movie was, but there's one where he's like, oh, she poisoned his drink, and they're like, and they this is like the second or third time you see in the montage them reacting to him like spoiling a movie, and this time they're kind of like, okay, we're gonna have to I don't know, screen these beforehand or something, but there's a scene where a character that we'll talk about in a second, but a character makes him a drink, and there's almost like a little moment of like she puts a little something extra in that drink or something like that. I thought, and I was like, whoa, they're not going to go that way, are they? But that's not where. I don't know if that was an intentional red herring or if it was just me overly reading into things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I guess I didn't notice it.
Fair enough. Yeah, but I mean, it would have made the story really strange. But yeah, for a second, I
Yeah.
was like, what? But yeah, so go ahead. So
Yeah, and then
he's kind of like lost his way in the town's eyes after this. Well, I don't know if they. It's not like they turn their backs on him entirely after this. It's just like because he doesn't solve that. That's kind of the end of people taking that any more serious than they ever did,
yeah,
and
because it's
taking
like
it
it
less
seemed
seriously
like the
from now on.
police used to come to him with like little things as well, not just like because it's kind of like his school classmates are like, who stole my erasers? Who did this? But he does like help on some actual cases, it seems like. And
Well, and one of the ones that's pinnacle, I think, and maybe this is what you're about to say, but one of the ones that's pinnacle is the principal asks him to figure out who stole the fundraiser money for some like animal welfare fund or something like
right.
that. And the money goes stolen, and he says, this one kid, I can't remember he's got a funny name,
Oh, Rory
something Beans,
Beans.
Rory Beans. He's like, Rory Beans got bit by a dog last summer. and
And
he's like,
that's
okay,
that was like the funny little thing I thought about when he's solving mysteries as a kid is he just kind of gets a tiny bit of information and then he's like, "Oh, this guy's allergic to peanuts. He did it." It's
yeah,
like,
he's like
did
running that.
any of these people really do what you're claiming that they did, or you're just like, "Oh, this had to be him."
Yeah, he's like running that out of his treehouse, and that kid's like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "Something got stolen out of my desk," and he's like, "What else was in the desk?" And he's like, "Reese's cups and blah blah blah," and he's like, "It was this guy," and then and he's like, "Oh, how do you know?" He's like, "He's the only one allergic to peanuts,"
Right?
which like can't be true, by the way,
Yeah.
with the prevalence of. But yeah, it does feel like a lot of it's. I mean, it's a little like campy, not campy, but it's played for laughs in the beginning because it's like he's just like this wide-eyed, sweet summer child of a kid detective that just I can solve all the crimes,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, "You're doing so good, kid. Here's the key to the city," you know.
It
But yeah. So now we meet him again, and he's 32,
yeah.
and he still has his little office that they gave him, but like nobody cares. And his receptionist now is like basically Daria, if
You're right.
anybody's old enough to, and his like first serious client is what's her character's name? Caroline, I think.
Caroline, yeah.
Yeah, his first like serious client is Caroline, and her boyfriend was just murdered, and he's like, murdered how? And she's like, he was stabbed 17 times. So this is like he's seeing this as his chance to redeem himself, and I'm trying to think of how much further into it to go plot wise without getting into spoilers, but that's kind of our that's kind of the setup, you know.
Yeah, it was him trying to figure out who murdered her boyfriend.
But man, it's certainly like we said earlier, like it certainly takes you kind of start to feel like you know how this movie's gonna go, and then I was trying to figure out how it's gonna wrap up because
Yeah.
I'll say this much: there's a point where he's digging into this case, and this is this I don't know if this is a spoiler or not.
I mean, just
Maybe
say
mild
spoilers,
spoiler.
just mild spoiler, just in
Yeah,
case.
mild spoilers ahead. This is foreshadowed before, but he's like, I've been in this situation more than once, where you're snooping around um, in a house trying to find evidence, and then the owner comes home, and you have to hide in their closet, and you keep thinking they're going to open their closet, but they don't, and then you sneeze and give yourself away, and they open the closet. And in the example at the beginning, it's like this lady opens the closet, and she's like, "Isn't that adorable?" He's like just this little kid in a suit, and she's like, "Look, come look, Frank. Look at this adorable thing." Uh, and so he's in this house, and he ends up in a closet again. He ends up in a closet in two closets in this house,
Mm.
but when he ends up in this little girl's closet, she thinks there's like I guess like a monster in her closet, or she's freaking out about something being in her closet, and she tells her mom, and her mom's like, I thought we were past this, whatever." And he sneezes one more time, and it just cuts to him being investigated or like being interrogated by the
Yeah.
police. And you almost that was kind of the moment where I was like, where are we gonna go from here? Because that is logically in a real life story like this, that's kind of where it's like, okay, wake up call. I'm not a detective. Whoops.
Yeah, but
I've been
it's kind of like luckily he's the police chief likes him and like liked him as a kid and he's like I gets that he wasn't there doing anything malicious. He was just investigating, which is still you can't break and enter into people's houses even if you're a private
and
detective, but
the little girl's room is a bad look, and
yeah.
regardless of the police chief's efforts to like get them to not prosecute or press charges or whatever, I guess they don't. But it doesn't matter because in the newspaper, this is released as like, well, you can't really say it on YouTube, but he's doing something to himself in a little girl's closet, and that's
Yeah,
like the front page news. So he's back on the front page again, but
right.
not for good reason this time. But yeah, it turns around, and yeah, like I said, I don't want to spoil the ending. What else is there to say about this thing?
There
It's
were
got
a
kind of
lot
an
of little
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say there are a lot of the little things I like that kind of made me think of it as like a Hardy Boys or like Nancy Drew type thing was like there's so many kids that all their names are just alliteration. Like the girl that goes missing, her name is like Gracie Gulliver, and there's like
Yeah,
Maria
there is a lot of that.
Manford or like there's a ton of that. And there's like a case he helped the ice cream guy solve who broke into his shop and he gets ice cream for life And
Yeah, I thought that was a funny little gag. Yeah.
yeah, there's a scene where like you can tell he probably goes in there every day because I don't know how much. There's no way that he's making much money. I don't even know how he's making any money as an adult doing these
Right.
solving these crimes or whatever he's doing. But he goes in and gets these like butter pecan, and like the guy's just like dead face and just hands it to him.
Here you go, dude. Here's your
And like
thousand, like 100,000 free ice cream, man.
yeah, and then there's like all the gangs. Like there's the kids on the stoop, the overnighters, the
There's
red
the
shoe
red shoe
gang,
gang.
and
It
it's
was
I
the red shoe, and like the stoop kids are like, come on, man, it was the red shoe gang. Haven't you been in this town for long enough to know
mhm.
everything's the red shoe gang, man? And like, yeah, and I was surprised by like when they start talking because it's like a little Asian kid that this girl's date was dating that got murdered, and like when they start talking about like he might have been involved in drugs and he might have been cheating on you with an older woman and whatever, I kind of thought that was all going to be like dead ends that are just like goofy. Of course
Right.
he's not really involved in drugs, he's like a dweeby Asian kid, and it pisses off the guy's father, who's like a well-known actor, by the way. I meant to look up
Yeah,
what,
I
but
very recognizable.
the actor is, it's like Z Ma. Oh, he was on Arrival.
Okay.
He's like the Chinese. um
He was the guy that on the screen for the Chinese embassy.
Yeah, and well, I don't want to spoil Arrival in this video, but anyway, he's on Arrival. And The Campaign, Rush Hour 3,
Yeah, he's
all the Rush Hour movies. Okay, so he's been on a few things. But yeah, I thought that was all going to be dead ends, and it was not. And I thought there was another cool tie. There's a tie-in, and I can't talk about this the second time, or not tie-in, but like kind of a callback from the beginning that happens at the end that I'm not going to say. But the beginning, his parents come and visit him at home, and it's like kind of the first time we see him after however many years have passed since he was this kid detective. And they're like disgusted by his house, and his, he's got this roommate running around, and they're like, how are your finances? And he's like, they're okay. And how's your credit card? It could be worse. And they're like, we're not going to bail you out again. And that whole thing is kind of like mirrored uh, again when he's sort of, well, anyway, yeah, without spoiling too much, but that whole intro thing like kind of gives you an idea of where he's at in his relationship with his parents and how many times they've had to like bail him out financially or whatever. So he is clearly not making money
yeah,
anymore.
he's
And I thought
definitely
there was
like
a funny line at the beginning where they're like, "What kind of cases?" He like, "When was the last time you solved a case?" And he's like, "I solve them all the time." He says that a bunch. I
yeah.
solve cases all the time. And they're like, "What was the last case you solved?" And he's like, I can't talk about those things." And they're like, "Okay." And he's like, "It was a gay guy, and he wanted to find out if another guy was gay." And like, "Well, was he gay?" And he goes, "Yeah, a little bit." And they're like, "Well, good. That's nice."
It's funny.
I
It's like,
thought that was
how
great.
do you know it's just a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. I just
There's little
great
subtle
line.
things in there that like made me laugh quite a bit.
I wish I could think. There was a couple of moments in there that I was like, "That's a good little like."
Well, there's
It's just the
one,
subtlest little jokes.
yeah, and there's one where they're going to talk to this kid who works at a butcher shop who was friends with the girl's murdered boyfriend, and then he is like, "Oh, I've been here before." He's like, "On an investigation." She was like, "Oh, what were you doing?" He's like, "Hired to see if his dad was gay." And then the kid comes down, they're talking to him. It's a real short interaction, and the kid's like, "This guy doesn't know what he's doing." And he's like, "Yeah, well, your dad's gay." And just
Yeah, yeah. Seems like a lot of investigations involve finding out if people are gay.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's pretty much about it. You should watch this movie.
yeah.
It's great.
It's
It really. I think it could have done a lot better if it hadn't been released when it was released. Who knows what could have been. But
right, and it's a good little like kind of comedy, dark comedy, but it is pretty serious and has the good. I don't want to spoil anything because I think you should definitely watch this movie.
it'll shock you by the end, and the very ending. If you let yourself think about it for a minute, the very ending I thought was really poignant and interesting and like thought provoking and everything. So
Mm,
yeah, watch this movie if you can, and it's not very long,
yeah,
which we
like an
we
hour and a half.
appreciate when you if you can pull off your story in a short time frame like that. It's kind of nice and tidy. So yeah, so if you've seen this movie, certainly comment below. If you haven't, watch it and come back and let us know how you thought about
What would you
it.
give it?
Oh yeah, we're forgetting to rate these things recently. I think I'd give it an 8. I almost lean higher than that, but
Yeah,
I'll say 8 for now. It's good. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I think
What about you?
7.5, just because I've given other movies that I liked a bit more like eights. So,
Yeah,
but
I
it
mean,
was good.
I know what you mean. Like, it's not like this
Our
is not
ranking
like the best
system's
movie
not
I've seen in
very,
my
yeah.
life, but man, not everything has to be remarkable. But this really surprised me and was a really good one. I recommend it.
Mhm.
Uh, so the next thing we're talking about is going to be Bottoms. Really looking forward to that. Kind of like a fight club for like the alternative girls at a high school.
Right.
um, so looking forward to that. And yeah, comment below, hit like. It helps us out a lot with the old algorithm. And yeah, share this with your friends if you know somebody that would get something out of this. And yeah, we appreciate you watching as always, and we'll see you in the next one, guys.
We'll see you.